G'day all and welcome back to Freo Faithful for the preview of tomorrow afternoon's huge clash against Collingwood. It's going to be the biggest crowd in our home and away history. It is a ginormous game. We are locked into the top 8 this round no matter what, with the Western Bulldogs losing on Friday night, but that doesn't make this game any less important. Now, we're not necessarily going into this game with an expectation to win, but it's almost a bit of a free hit. There's a bit of excitement. As long as we show up and we give it a good crack and we show we can at least match it with the best, then I think there'll be a lot of belief going forward, not into just this season, but into the future. And it's sort of a test on where we are in our progress, because we've only had one loss since we lost to the Pies earlier this season. So we've been in incredible form. That sort of was the turning point in our season. I think that Collingwood game we might have been 5-6, 5-7. And then ever since then, we just went on a massive winning run and completely turned our season around. So it's going to be very interesting to see where we're at in front of 70k at the MCG. Collingwood have made 5 changes. Jeremy Howe, injured. Dan Houston, injured. Tim Membry managed. Tom Mitchell managed. Rowan Steele omitted. Coming in, Charlie Dean, Pat Lipinski, Brody Mychek, Ed Allen, and Bo McCreary. For Fremantle, Isaiah Dudley's been omitted, and Hayden Young is back into the team. So, yeah, if you just look at the team selection, certainly in favour of us. I mean, I'm not saying the Collingwood team that they're putting out is weak by any means. They sort of put out a weakened version of their team against us earlier this season, but it's certainly a good time to catch them, or maybe a bad time depending how you look at it. In my point of view, I think it's a really good time. You know, they're having to manage a really informed Tim Membry. I think he's had a kid during the week, so congratulations to him. But very good news for us that they've had to manage him due to that. Dan Houston and Jeremy Howe, 2 key cogs of their defence. Dan Houston, the rebound. Jeremy Howe just holding down the fort. And they've managed Tom Mitchell only after a couple of games back in the team. Their replacements are more than viable. I mean, Bo McCreary is a huge in, as is Lipinski and Mychek. But, you know, they're only playing 2 key defenders in Charlie Dean and Darcy Moore. They're certainly going to be undersized back there, matching up on a Tracy, an Amos, a Voss, a floating Luke Jackson, a Sean Darcy who's resting forward. They're going to be massively undersized back there. So I think that's an area we can really catch them off guard in. You know, obviously, as I've mentioned, there are heaps of areas we need to shut down with Collingwood to even have a sniff at winning this game. But that being said, I think it's a really good time to catch them. They've come off a rare interstate trip. How will they fare coming off that? I'm not sure. I was listening to Craig McRae's presser. He seemed a bit disorientated. He was saying it's been a weird week around the club and preparation's been a bit weird. So maybe I'm just deluding myself and maybe I'm just deluding you guys, but maybe Collingwood are a bit off this week. What would be even better is if we turn up against a really, really good Collingwood outfit and get a result. But I think there's just a good chance overall that we get a result against this Collingwood outfit. Now, I was just mentioning the undersized Pies backline against our taller forward line, and I think that makes the matchups really, really interesting. Now, a guy that got off the chain last week for Collingwood in the fourth quarter was Josh Dacos. 16 touches, 2 goals. We know how that quarter went. But he was playing in the midfield. Now, I'm still expecting him to have a good game, and with Dan Houston out of the team, I'm expecting Josh Dacos to be on halfback and not really go through the midfield. And he's such a good rebounder. He's such a key cog in starting their transition from halfback to the forward line. So I'm wondering if maybe Sam Switkowski plays a forward half pressure role on Dacos, similar to what Braden Campbell did on Jordan Clark a few weeks ago against Sydney. It could be a Sam Switkowski, or I was thinking it could maybe be a Hayden Young, because I'm expecting if Youngie's not sub, that he'll probably rest forward. And if he's resting half forward, you know, pushing into stoppages and whatnot, is he maybe going to be given a role to sort of mitigate Josh Dacos off halfback and stop his rebound and their ball movement? It's sort of one of the only ways Collingwood get fast flowing ball movement, because they tend to be a slower, more methodical team. So it's going to be interesting to see if we do anything in that department and who gets that job if we do that. I'm expecting Corey Wagner to tag Nick Dacos again. Did a fantastic job at Optus. He broke it off and kicked a couple of goals, but that wasn't Wagner's fault. That was just Nick Dacos being a brilliant footballer. It's going to be a very different prospect in front of 70,000 Collingwood fans at the MCG, but I'm expecting Wags to get the job, and hopefully he goes to work on him yet again. Now, Jordan Clark, as I just mentioned, he copped a role from Braden Campbell a few weeks ago. I think Ross Lyon did something to him. Ross Lyon tried to do something to him, but he was incredible in that game. Maybe Lockie Sullivan cops a role on Jordy Clark. there is certainly a chance that we do that. Now, I think Clark defensively will also go to Sullivan because out of the guys listed in the forward line, he's probably the least damaging, the least threatening, and Clark's probably the one where you want to have least accountability for his defensive actions, so we can use him offensively where he plays his best football. So I think Clark will be matched up on Sullivan defensively, and I think Sullivan might actually get a defensive job on Clark to stop his halfback rebound, which will be interesting. And then their backline, as I mentioned, super interesting. Now, Darcy Moore is clearly their best key defender playing, so you'd instantly think he goes to Tracy. But Tracy is obviously the forward that pushes up the most for us, and Darcy Moore tends to stay quite deep. So I think Charlie Dean will actually take Josh Tracy, which I think massively plays into our favour. And I think Darcy Moore will go to Jai Amos, who tends to be our deepest forward. And I think Brayden Maynard will go to Paddy Voss, which will be absolute box office. But with that undersized backline, I think we can really try and stretch them, and I think it's an area we can really catch them off guard in. And then in terms of our defense on their offense, I've had a look. I think Cox will probably go to Myercheck as the deepest forward. McStay likes to push up. I think Omac will go with him. Maybe Luke Ryan undersized, but I think Ryan will go to Hoskin Elliott, Chapman to Schultz, and Warner to Elliott. There was a bit of a talking point whether we bring Brandon Walker into the team or whatnot, but we have just gone with Carl Warner. I'm expecting to play on Elliott. I can't remember who played on Jamie Elliott last time out. I don't think it was Carl. It might have been. But yeah, he kicked 6 goals on us last time. He's certainly something we have to be very wary of. Now, a key point into winning this game is fast footy beats Collingwood, and we saw it with Gold Coast against them last week. The Suns kicked 7 goals to 0 in the first half, something like 10 goals to 1 up until three-quarter time. That's a complete guess, but it was something like that. They play in a very slow, methodical, and straight line sort of way, and it's worked all year, and they're brilliant at picking off an opportunity exactly when they need to. But if we can do what the Suns, the Giants, and the Cats have done this year and hit them through the middle with quick, corridor-driven football, that's the key to catch them off guard. And there's a clear sample size. The 3 games they've lost this season, that's what those 3 teams have done. And it's easier said than done because they are the best team in the comp at defending the corridor. I sit level 5 at Optus, and I remember the Pies game. It's very, very obvious week in, week out who defends the corridor well against Freo and who doesn't. Collingwood this season have been the best at defending the corridor, and especially against Freo, they set up so well defensively. Now, they're without Houston, they're without Howe. It might affect their backline a little bit, but I think it's more their team defense as opposed to their backline that really hold them in good stead behind the ball. But we just have to at least make chaos at ground level and not let them have the game on their terms all day. Now, mid-forward connection's a massive one as well, because we were plus 29 inside 50s against Collingwood earlier this year and lost by only 14 points. Justin Longmuir absolutely coached us a win that day, and the thing that let us down was that mid-forward connection. And we're going in with a very tall forward line compared to Collingwood's undersized back line, and if we can stretch them and hit all of our tall targets, we'll give ourselves a very, very good chance at kicking a winning score. We absolutely have to go to work on that during the week, and I hope we have. And we just have to bring the same hunger. 103 tackles or not, like we did last week. As long as we have the same pressure and intent at the footy and at the player, we'll have a red-hot chance at winning this. And the footy we played last week wasn't perfect, but it was sustainable. As long as we give it as good of a crack as we gave it last week, have 5 blokes piling onto every single Collingwood player that obtains the football, and if we can clean up on the execution, which would be an even bigger bonus, then geez, we are going to give ourselves a red-hot crack. Now, I don't want to be delusional. I don't want to make you delusional, but I've had my tip on Collingwood all week. I'm tipping Fremantle by 5. I'm tipping an upset. I've seen a few expert tips. They've given me some belief. I've seen a few people tipping Fremantle, and I'm like, you know what? Why can't we? Why can't we get a scalp? We do this at least once a year under Justin Longmuir. We get Geelong away when they're a very good team. A few years back, we got Melbourne away when we broke their 9 or so game winning streak. We tend to do this to really good teams away from home at least once a year. We haven't done it yet this year. Like, you can maybe count the Suns game, but we haven't really done it to an absolute top shelf team. A top-shelf Victorian team, which we tend to do. We're going to break the Victorian curse. We're going to win the game in Victoria, and we're going to beat Collingwood by 5 points. Come back to this preview in 48 hours and tell me how delusional I am. If you're a Collingwood fan, no disrespect. I think you're a brilliant footy team, and you're clearly the favourites in this game, but I've just got a little bit of a feeling. Let me know how you think the game's going to go down in the comments. I'll be live for the live reaction tomorrow, Arvo. Come and join me and enjoy the game with the Freo Faithful community, as well as the fan cams after the game, where we can unpack win, loss, or draw. Thank you all for watching. Keep across of all the content across the socials at Freo Faithful on Instagram and Freo Faithful on Spotify. Rated 5 stars. Thank you for watching. Up the Dockers. I'll see you next time.